Hey everyone, time for another 3 at 3 on solar PV. I'm Jenn Runyon, Chief Editor of Renewable Energy World.
I'm Paula Mintz, Chief Market Research Analyst, SPV Market Research.
Hey Paula.
Hey Jenn.
So everybody, we take 3 topics, we talk about them for about 3 minutes each. And today we're going to be looking at the looming solar vortex. Paula just came up with that term, but in reality, we're looking at the trade case, we're looking at this potential notice of proposed ruling, the NOPR for FERC, and then we're going to talk about Puerto Rico a little bit and maybe how the renewable industry is really trying to mobilize to bring some aid there. So let's start with these 2 things that are lining up that could really, really hurt solar and really all renewables. So first we've got the trade case. That's just solar. What's the update there?
Well, as you said, it's our thing, by the way, the solar vortex. I refuse to take credit. Okay. But this is the bad side. This is when you say the stars align, people usually think, wow, that's a great thing. This is a bad stars aligning. Yeah. And you're the one who actually mentioned it. So when we were talking right before our taping, it's these 2 things together, the solar wind vortex, if you want to call it that really could signal a downing, a slowing of the solar, and renewables deployment for utility scale and very large commercial in the U.S. Mm-hmm. As to the trade case, this is sort of the no news thing, like when you turn on the Sunday morning news talk shows and people are talking about what could happen. That's essentially what we're doing. Yeah. First of all, the statute does not allow for a minimum price, so it's doubtful. Let's just say it's doubtful. That's going to be one of the remedies, highly doubtful, as in close to impossible, but nothing is entirely impossible in this world, as we keep saying. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at also, on the defendant side, on the SIA, et cetera side, apparently, and I wasn't there were no module assemblers testifying, and this is unfortunate because there was no one to say if a cell tariff is instituted, it will harm us, U.S. manufacturers.
And we are U.S. manufacturers.
Material. Yeah. So there are no, other than Solar World, there are no crystalline manufacturers left in the U.S., that's a problem. Solar World, even if it was to sell cells, say that 3 times fast, to U.S. module assemblers, they don't have enough capacity. Right. So they're going to have to be imported, and that just, starts, it's a tailspin of margins again. Yeah. So we can see tariff on cells, probably likely, tariff on modules, and could see a quota, which means that each manufacturer can only ship in so much, which with all the expansions out of China into other areas is going to be really fairly difficult to police, and how do you structure it?
True.
Any way you look at it, it's going to impact prices. Mm-hmm. Or prices to the small guys at least. Yep. And that, I don't mean that to trivialize it. What I mean is, and this is truly what happened the last time. Whereas manufacturers shipping from overseas, shipping in cells and modules, can potentially absorb the tariff for large sales, they're not going to do it for the medium and small sales. They're just not going to. Prices are
they're just going to go up, and the smaller installers are going to have to pay them.
And right now we do have a genuine, whether or not it's artificial, I think it's artificial because I happen to know there's plenty of cell capacity in the world, plenty of module assembly capacity to serve the market we have, but there's a shortage coming into the U.S., Canada, et cetera. That's a problem.
Yep. Yeah. And it goes to our president to make that call.
Whatever call is made, yes, will eventually go to him.
Right. And then, and that's really kind of leads us into this second notice of proposed ruling. We know Trump wants to bring back coal, and that is exactly what this proposed ruling would do. It essentially would pay coal and nuclear power generators some kind of premium for providing what they are calling
continuous power.
So it's their word for base load, but it's continuous power. So they have some 90-day supply on hand. They can always generate.
Well, here's some irony, basically, based on what you're saying. The sun is up there more than 90 days, so you always have 90 days of power. Maybe they can make that argument.
Isn't that the definition of renewable power? Is that it's there all the time, and it's free.
Unfortunately, the equipment isn't, but the sun is. Unfortunately, all we can go on is what Mr. Trump has said in the past. And Mr. Trump has clearly said that he doesn't favor incentives for solar and wind. Clearly said this. Mm-hmm. And all of his actions have held this up, including the coming, what he's doing to the CPP supposedly tomorrow. So this is all the reason why we came up with the solar vortex was because if you read the DOE statement and ruling order, whatever you want to call it, it's all based on the 2014 polar vortex, which is what they're ruling in PJM territory, pardon me, another thing you can't say fast, was all about. Right. It's almost word for word. Yeah. And you know that one of the commissioners said something about independence.
Yeah, so I've been heartened. I've read a couple, I think it's been two of the commissioners have said, the first one said, listen, we are not a political party, we're not a political body, we're not going to be ruled by politics, we will make our decision based on the facts. So that felt good. And then I think another commissioner said, hear, agree, or something like that.
Unfortunately, they did already rule.
Well, that's the other side of this. Yeah, so Paula is referring to a ruling that took place back in 2015, which was in response to that polar vortex, if you all remember. There was a spike in power prices because everything got so cold and natural gas was in short supply, and that's where a lot of the electricity was coming from. So the idea behind this, the words behind this ruling are to avoid those kind of power price spikes, you need to have this continuous 90-day supply of generation on hand. And if you do, then you'll get paid a little bit more for your power, which essentially props up coal plants.
A thinner justification for an overriding ruling I just can't think of, and it'll be interesting to see what the individual ISOs and RTOs do with this, mm-hmm. and what some states, California, where I live, a stand-up state, pretty consistently, now a sanctuary state. We're in for a rough and tumble time, and this ruling really impacts utility scale renewable deployment and large scale commercial deployment. It really has an impact on both the wind and solar industries. Absolutely. It's the thing, other than the trade situation, which is equally unpleasant and has, the most unpleasant thing to me, honestly, is seeing our industry divided up into warring camps again. Right. This is pretty discouraging. Yeah. And I think we've discussed the reasons for this were, let's just use the words murky. For this original petition, for this petition, you have to. But back to that real briefly, because they are connected. My understanding is Suniva and Solar World couldn't actually present a very good plan for how they were going to reemerge from this, particularly Suniva. So, why divide an industry right on the cusp of this really significant event, this ruling that we all need to gird up for, and we all need to stand together, and we need our lobbyists to be focused on that.
Yep, and there's a hearing on Thursday. Renewable Energy World will definitely be covering that. We'll let you know. Rick Perry is going before Congress to testify and I think explain some of his agenda items, what the DOE is doing. So we'll be
that ought to be interesting.
That will be interesting. To me, and this really brings us into our third topic, the most fascinating part of this whole ruling is that it's called grid resilience, and the irony is that it comes out at a time when Puerto Rico, a U.S. territory, has no grid, and it wouldn't matter.
And other Caribbean islands.
Yes, and other islands as well, right? And it wouldn't matter if they had 90 days of coal stockpiled on those islands right now, because there's no grid. You can't get the power to the people. And so if you really want to do grid resilience, You got to focus on the grid, and that's where renewables and energy storage and all of this digital stuff that's going on in this industry could really help.
And that's where, and this is a topic we've brushed on before in the past and discussed, and I've written about, I know, and I know you have too, is the grid of the future is not going to be the grid we have now.
Right.
We have climate accelerated weather events, heat waves, blah, that threaten the very fabric of our electricity infrastructure. Yeah. And so just more of the same, as you pointed out articulately here, more of the same does not solve that problem. More of the same, rebuilding the grid, come on. Right now, they're using polluting generators in many cases to get electricity back on.
Right.
They're out of generators in Puerto Rico.
Right.
Whereas, granted, storms of this magnitude are going to wipe everything out, right? But solar comes back on fairly quickly. Solar and batteries, you got to get the equipment there. You've still got to get it into an island, but nonetheless, it can be rebuilt faster, more efficiently.
Yeah, it can, and we do know that there are quite a few people in the industry lobbying hard, working hard to figure out if they can really make this a reality. Because wouldn't it be an amazing test bed to really go full force with renewables in Puerto Rico?
More than a test bed. It's, I think we're all on empathy overload in the world right now. Watching, in Berlin, by the way, last week, 120-mile-an-hour winds killed 7 people. Wow. We really, this is a global issue here. And so, yes, test bed. And also keeping in mind that while we have this opportunity to show anybody in power what the world can look like in the future and how we can rebuild for a more sustainable future for all of us, and a more rapid recovery from these horrible events. But there are people that are literally dying, and we can help them. And it's not Puerto Rico, it's all the many Caribbean islands that we too many to name. And this is the opportunity now to change our ways. The opportunity has been long in coming and always, but this is an opportunity where a crisis and where we can step up, and we can step up more rapidly as renewable industry.
Yeah, no, we really can. And we have a longtime contributor to Renewable Energy World. His name is Scott Sklar. He wrote an article for The Hill on this very topic. Please consider repowering Puerto Rico with solar efficiency, renewables, all that good stuff. He told me he's in the thick of it, and we will continue to report on what's going to happen if that proposal is going to have any legs at all. But it sure would be great.
And though it's when you look at the metrics of Tesla, it's very hard to have a positive word. Elon Musk has said he is shipping Powerwalls and employees to Puerto Rico to help them get back up and running, and he spoke with the governor about how solar can answer this, and he's right. But let's see him keep it up. Meanwhile, by the way, the other side, there's always two sides to every coin, as everybody should know. And that is why we have the trade case. There's always two sides to every coin. There's for the I am being hurt, there are the other people on the other side who benefited from the very low prices. So hurt somebody, unfortunately. So small installers looking for their deliveries of Powerwalls are starting to say they ain't going to come, and this is our problem in our small business.
That's true.
So you always impact someone when decisions are made. Yeah. So no matter what Mr. Musk's motives are for this is what needs to happen right now in a crisis, is people need to step up and do this sort of thing. Yeah. And along the way, the result of this is potentially showing the world how we can actually provide continuous power as renewables.
That's right. What the future looks like. So let's hope it happens. We are so out of time, Paula. We went way over, but like we always do. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, everybody. We will see you next time on 3 at 3 on Solar PV.
Bye.
Bye.